Hey everyone, welcome to our KeepnTrack training or webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our main goal is to get information in the hands of those who need it. So any questions that you have about general operation of the program, how to do certain functions, please let us know as we go on throughout the day. I, Josh Hutchings, am going to be manning the Q&A, while our awesome trainer, Seneca Ramirez, is going to be doing most of the presentation. I'll be jumping in a little bit later to do some more. Yeah, so as you have questions throughout, throw them in the Q&A of the Zoom app, and then we will have an actual dedicated Q&A session. So if it's something that I feel would be better answered in a group format as opposed to just via text because it's too complex or requires us to walk through the program, we'll do it in that form. Do be aware that since this is a group training, it might not be easy enough for us to answer some questions if they're too kind of specific or based on your own unique program usage. So if you need, feel free to reach out to our customer support team after the training. We will put the contact information in our Q&A chat. If you need that, we'll probably put it up at the very end of the meeting as well. Other than that, is there anything else I'm forgetting there, Seneca?
How KeepnTrack is a tool.
Oh, that's right. Yes. We do want to emphasize for those of you who are kind of new at the usage of the program or still exploring how KeepnTrack fits best into your overall day-to-day function, we see it as a valuable tool in your tool belt of various security features. So we highly encourage folk to look at a bigger picture outside of just KeepnTrack alone as to what security looks like, making sure that you make plans for how your security is executed, not just within the program itself, educating yourself on what a sex offender registry matches look like, what they mean, why people are admitted to the database in the first place. Those kinds of things really help in the overall use of the program, just because KeepnTrack in and of itself isn't the answer to everything or the end-all be-all. But yeah, so that's kind of our gist today. Seneca will be taking over now, so I'll be taking over Q&A. So excited to hear your questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. And hello, everyone. My name is Seneca. And as Josh mentioned, I'll be going through most of our webinar here, and then Josh will jump back in a little bit later. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. We will be using our demo database here today. So you'll see I'm just up here at demo.keepntrack.com. And because I haven't signed into anything yet, you're seeing that it is asking me which site I would like to sign into or which site I'm looking at. So let me go ahead and select a site and continue. And what we're looking at right here is going to be your KeepnTrack hub. This is like your landing page. So we are able to customize what icon is up here or your, branding. You will be able to add your own. I'll show you how to do that a little later. But then this is also asking you pretty much where is it that I'm trying to go. We will be starting under our admin, but I will go into both the attended and self-service kiosk here a little later. So because I haven't signed in, it is asking me, so let's get logged in here. If you do have access to multiple sites, you will have that site picker if you didn't have it already. So it will ask which site you'd like to log into, or if you are maybe like an operator that's only working at one school or one site, then it would just log you into that one that you have access to. Now that we're logged in, we're on what we call our dashboard. This is like your home page. You're going to have some quick links into different areas of KeepnTrack to get there nice and quickly in one click. And then over here off to the right-hand side, you're going to have some little messages from us, things that we're highlighting. So those will kind of change throughout the year, so just keep an eye out on those. On our left-hand side, we have our side navigation. So just what area am I trying to get to? What am I trying to do here under my admin screen? And on the top, we have our top navigation, and we're going to have a couple different menus here. First, you're going to have your user menu, and this is going to show you who's currently logged in, so my demo, and then which site it is that I'm logged into. Clicking on here, I can see my site information. Right now mine is blank. I will show you where that can be filled out though. You can also switch sites if you have access to multiple sites. So rather than having to log out and log back in, I can just pop over to another one. And then I'm also able to log out from KeepnTrack from here. Next to that, we have our message drawer, a little message bubble icon. And this is going to show you some of the last operations that you have run, as well as any messages from us here at KeepnTrack. When you have been updated, you'll see it will show you, and there will be a link to our release notes. So keep an eye out on those, just so you're always up to date on what it is that we're doing within KeepnTrack. Our last little menu here is going to be the help menu, the little question mark icon at the top right-hand corner, where you can go directly to our support center. There's going to be a lot of good information on here. This is also where those release notes will be held. So if you are new to KeepnTrack, or if you're new to KeepnTrack 7, this is going to be a lovely resource. Going to our main page, we'll have some getting started resources, frequently asked questions, best practices, those release notes. But also, if we scroll down really quickly, I just wanted to pop up our contact information, just in case anyone wanted to write that down or take a quick screenshot of that. And then we can also, did you post that in the chat?
I will post that in the chat, yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
That will also be in the chat. We can close out of there for now. You're also able to contact us right here through KeepnTrack. So just by going to contact us, you'll see you can choose who it is that you're trying to reach. Please double check your reply to email so we are able to get a hold of you or reply to your email, and then your question down here at the bottom. Our support team is also available 24/7 by phone. So if it's something a little bit more important that you might need a quicker answer to, I would suggest just giving us a call. And then you'll also notice that we have a link to an ideas form. So if there's ever anything here in KeepnTrack that you think would just be a great addition, or maybe modifying something would make your job a little easier, definitely fill out that ideas form. That does go directly to our ideas team that will start researching how we can implement that into KeepnTrack. And then because you filled out that ideas form, if they have any questions on maybe how something might work, or might need a little bit more clarification, they can get in contact directly with you. Let's go ahead and close out of there. And then lastly, you have about KeepnTrack, and this is going to be specifically about your KeepnTrack license. So what version are you currently on? When does your license expire? Any add-ons that you have, things along those lines. All right, perfect. So now that some of that basic navigation is taken care of, let's pop down, and we're going to actually start at the bottom of our side nav under our preferences. Now, some of our preferences are going to be specific for volunteers, so just keep that in mind. I will be skipping some of these. However, Josh will go over them a little later once we get into more of that volunteer section. Starting with our users, you have your user defaults. This is going to be where you set which next barcode KeepnTrack will assign when assigning new barcodes for your new users. One thing I want to point out with all of your preferences is up here at the right-hand side, you're going to see that it will either say site or system. So just keep that in mind, because if it's a site-based preference, that means it's going to be for just one specific site, whichever one I'm logged into. So in my case, it would be for Site 2 or AMS. If it's system-based, think of that more of the whole program, or more of the district-wide preference. Next, we have our roles. You'll notice that is system-based. And this is where you can specify the different types of roles. So first of all, everyone is going to be considered a visitor. So that's going to be your baseline role. Then you have your two customized ones, which we have one for volunteer, and then your other role, we just have ours set as student, but you are able to customize those. Let's pop back over to our main page and go into our setup, where you can change your time zone as well as your language, customize any terminology to better suit your needs. Those custom forms, those are going to be for our volunteers, so we'll skip over that. And then we have our security checks. Now, with your security checks, this is going to be where you're actually setting those up if you are going to be running criminal background checks and sex offender registry checks. A couple things to keep in mind here is you'll notice that you have an email listed. When KeepnTrack sees that you are below 50 tokens, it will go ahead and send an email letting you know so that you can order more, but it's going to send to the email that's specifically listed right here. So just make sure that that is up to date. If someone does, change positions or maybe leaves your site or district, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that you do update that so that you are alerted once you are getting low in those tokens. Now, with your sex offender registry and criminal background checks, you are able to have a couple different preferences here to set them up on how frequently they will run, as well as how long you want to wait to run the next one. I'm going to take a quick step back. So you'll notice I'm not registered here in my demo. However, I will have our screenshots to show you. So one moment while I pull those up. Sorry, guys, I forgot to open this when I was setting everything up. All right, so here's going to be that preferences page. Both of our drop-down menus, so the criminal background check and the sex offender registry check, they'll both have the same options under these drop-downs. So first we have if it's disabled, meaning it's not going to run at all. You won't be able to run it manually, or in the kiosk, it won't run on demand. Next, we have the checks again after. So this is going to have a specific date on when the last time the check was ran, and then it will wait however long you decide here to run that again. So if you do have, people coming in really frequently, but you only have it running every 30 days, it's not going to run it every single time they come in, eating up those tokens of yours. For the CBC checks, you'll notice that you'll also have the option to automatically run these for volunteers or for that secondary role. In my case, that is set to student. However, that would just be for whichever one. So if you want those to run automatically, then you would be able to choose which roles you would like those to run for. Next, we have some alerts. You have your site alerts and then your system alerts, and you have 3 different alerts that you can set up here. So if you would like to have this sent to, let's say, like a principal or your resource officer, maybe the resource officer of the district, just someone who might be able to be there to have a little bit more backup if someone who has their access denied tries to sign in, or if they have been set to failed, so they failed that like sex offender registry check, as well as if they have any possible matches when they try to sign in to self-service. And so as you see, you have both system and site, and then you can send these in a text message, an email, or both. That's going to be it for our preferences. Let's go ahead and jump into our tools. Over here under our sites, this is going to be where you can set up that site information. So if I unlock, I would be able to make any modifications to the site info down here. If by chance your site name changes and you need that to be modified, you'll just want to go ahead and contact us, and then we can get our hosting team to modify that for you. Under security, you are able to customize any of our security groups from the site administrator down. This is also a great area to go into just as you're getting started to make sure things are set up as you'd like for your different operators or your different users, and then, kind of customize that to suit your needs specifically. And then our last tool that we're going to be talking about is going to be the activities. Your activities are where you're specifically saying or telling the program, this is where these people are going in my building. You'll see I have some examples off to the left-hand side, such as one for volunteers going on a field trip. I'm going to unlock this so it's not as grayed out. You can see it a little better. But you're able to give this a name. You'll notice that in mine, I have a few of these set with a just kind of like matching my site name, so that AMS. That way I can look in this list and very easily see which activity this is for, because you will want to specify which site this activity will be used in. You'll also have your roles, so who's going to be signing in or using this type of activity. Right down here, you can choose if it's timed or untimed. An untimed activity is great for those volunteers where, in this case, for my field trip, they are able to come in, they would sign in, get their badge, but then I don't need them to come sign out with me at the end of the day. They are able to just go about their way. A timed activity means I want them to specifically come in and sign in with me, but then I also want that specific timestamp of when they've left. For your volunteers, you're also able to give them a specific amount or award them a certain number of minutes, depending on how you'd like. If you want like 60 minutes, even if they were only there for like 55 or maybe 65 minutes, they're still just going to get whatever you put in here. And then your print format. How would you like this to be printed for them? Then we're going to have some destinations. These are like your secondary groupings of activities. So yes, I know they're here for a field trip, but which field trip are they going on? And I would be able to select that. To create a new activity, we're going to use our plus sign up here at the top right. We'll give it a name, and I will say AMS. We'll say this is for a classroom visit. I'm already set to AMS since that's what I'm currently logged into, and I will leave this for my visitors. Under my settings, I do want this to be specifically signed in and signed out, and then we will print a badge. And on my destinations, I'm able to then write any sort of classroom specifically, whether this is like Mr. Jones. Just kind of give some examples here. And once we're ready, we're going to click Save. And we're all set. If you do need to have these specific, let's say like classroom visits or field trips, but for multiple of your sites, a really quick way to do that rather than having to go through and type in each one is once you have the first one created, you're actually able to come up to your actions and duplicate that activity. And then I would just, modify that name. So take out copy and then, maybe write the correct abbreviation there and then change the site. But that would be a nice quick way to duplicate these so you don't have to fill them out each one. But we can revert that for now. We're going to skip over operations for now, but we will pop up to our users. And everyone in your KeepnTrack is considered a user, whether they are just a visitor, a volunteer, if it's front office staff, or someone that's working in KeepnTrack like an admin, everyone is going to be a user. We're going to have some information here. First, you're going to have at the top left ways that you can search. So we're going to have basic searching as well as 2 quick search options. And then you have your advanced search. With a user selected, up here at the top, you're always going to show just some very basic information. So if you've provided a picture, their picture will be here, their name, their barcode, that is that unique number of theirs. If you are going to be keeping track of students, I would suggest keeping the barcode matching their student ID. That way they can quickly sign in if they have like a scannable student badge. Let's go ahead and unlock this so I can make some changes and also how it not be dark. You have your birth date. That is important for your visitors if you are going to be wanting to run those criminal background checks or sex offender registry checks, as it will want that birth date to be able to make a correct match. Our statuses, and then which site is like their home site. Right down here in the middle, we're going to have a list of our different tabs. So overview, pretty basic information here, just kind of giving you some quick info. Personal information, I would say pretty standard here. Same with your contact information. One important thing, especially for any of your operators or users, I will suggest that you enter a primary email address. That way, if they forget their password, they're not able to log in, they're able to reset that with KeepnTrack rather than having to contact another admin to try to log in and update their password. Here we have our roles. So this will be specific to what you have set up in your preferences. So here's my volunteer. You'll notice that I have an expiration date and start date as well. So if I only want them to be volunteers for a certain amount of time, that's where you're going to be able to set that up. And then if I tried to sign in after that expiration date, it wouldn't let me sign in as a volunteer. I would maybe need to come in, maybe do another check, whatever your internal process would be. And then on the right, you will need to authorize them as that secondary or third role. At the very bottom, you're able to choose which sites is this person able to sign into under those activities. Next, we have security, which we have two different subtabs here. We have our access. This is going to be really important for any of your operators. So giving them a username and password, selecting which sites they can sign into, and that security group that they will belong to. And I'll show you those here in just a moment once I create a new user. And then we're going to have our checks. And within your checks, this is where you can manually run those sex offender registry or criminal background checks. One thing to keep in mind when you are running these is that if you wanted to run them both, you're only going to want to run the bottom checks, so the criminal background check. Because when you run that criminal background check, it does use 2 tokens, but it will run the sex offender registry check as well. So we don't want to run the sex offender registry check first and then run that, because then it would essentially be wasting 1 token because it would be running that sex offender registry check twice. Over here, we're going to have a little bit more information. So let me pop down. So here's that security screen that we were just looking at. And then if I select to run a check, clicked too quickly there. So if I'm performing a criminal background check or a sex offender registry check, it's going to show me any of those possible matches. And this is what that's going to look like. Now, I just have Mr. John Doe here pulled up. So you'll notice that up here it says I have 1 out of 100. Hopefully you never see that many, but since John Doe is that alias, we do have quite a bit that I would need to work through. But from here, this is going to be really important for you to really use those internal processes. You know, that person might be right there in front of you, or maybe they've already submitted an image or a picture of themselves. So you're going to want to use this to determine, is this or is this not a match? You would be able to just go through, click continue, and process those matches. Once you click continue to process, this is going to be that secondary window. So actually saying, is this or is this not a match? We can allow them access. So none of these were matches. They are good to go. You can deny their access. So this is a match and we are not allowing them in today. We're not allowing them in at all. They are just going to be completely blacklisted. You can also allow them once, but then fail them moving forward. So this is a match, but perhaps this is someone who's already called, you've already spoken to them, you know the situation, they need to come in and maybe speak to a counselor or the principal. So we are allowing them in this one time. However, if they try to come in the future, they will have their access denied. You also have the option to defer. So I'm just not quite sure. This might be who I think it is, but it might not be. Maybe I just want, a second set of eyes. So if you defer, this will be able to go back to and then make your choice later on. You're also able to make any notes down here if you'd like. If I choose to close out the check or defer without actually saying if it was a pass or not, I will get this little message here just letting me know that it's just closing my window. I would be able to run the check again without it using up my tokens. It's just going back so I can make my decision later on. And these same steps that we're looking at right here would be the same windows that you'd be seeing, that you'd be seeing in the kiosks if there was a possible match coming up, if you have those set to run automatically. One other thing I would like to mention right here is once you've selected if this is or is not a match, or even if you defer, once you have a date listed right here, you're going to be able to click on it to go back to view those results previously. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to completely perform the check again. If you have a date listed, you can click on it and see those past results. If you are processing people like maybe staff members who have a different form of checks that you're running and you do not want KeepnTrack to ever run a criminal background check or sex offender registry check on them, you can also come up here and click like always allow, never check, or possibly this is someone that you are adding to the program beforehand and you're just wanting to say, I never want to run these checks, but I also do not want them allowed into my building. You are able to always deny, but still never check there. If you are going to be choosing deny, never check, I would also suggest setting your status to like inactive, just so that way, or no access, so that way it'll also pop up there letting you know. Our last tab is going to be for any emergency contact information that you might want noted here in KeepnTrack. All right, to add a new operator, we are going to first make sure our users management is unlocked, and then we can use our plus sign, and then add some information here. So I'm actually going to I'll add myself if I can type my own name. Which site I belong to, any other information here. It is going to be important for that primary email. If I wanted to add any specific rules so that I can sign in as a visitor, volunteer, student as well. Maybe I'll set myself as a volunteer. And then under security, again, we're going to want that username and password and your security group. So depending on what you have set up in your preferences, you can set up that security group. I'll say like kiosk operator. and then oops, enter that username and password and which sites I am able to log into. And then save. Oh, I already have my username. There we go. We'll add it too. There we go. And now I'm in the system. So now that we have that, let's pop over to our kiosks. Actually, I'm going to really quickly, when I show you how to sign someone in, I'm going to use Jack Black's barcode. So let me copy that. And then we're going to pop over to our kiosks. So over here, this is where you'll notice you're able to really customize what your kiosk is going to look like by adding your own branding. And if you'd like on that hub, you can also have that go to a specific link right down here. And this would be site-based. You also have some notices that you're able to add. So we have that no school this Friday. If someone's trying to sign in on self-service and they're not able to, what do you want the program to tell them? I can say, please, Josh at the desk, and save. And then your system notice, again, that is going to be still showing up on those kiosks, but that is more for like district-wide notices that you might want to show. And right down here, you're able to get little quick links into those 3 different areas, or 4 technically, where you're trying to go. Really quickly, sorry guys, I forgot to add, I wanted to add another John Doe so I can show you what it will look like when someone is not able to sign in. So let me pop over here and I'm just going to type this in really quickly. If you notice that a date pops in there, go ahead and just remove it before adding anything. Here we go. And we are going to say no access. And I'm also going to say always deny. Perfect. Okay, so now let's pop over to our hub and into the attended kiosk. So your attended kiosk, this is where someone is actually behind the desk helping people sign in. So you have kind of a set of eyes on the program rather than letting people sign in by themselves, which would be the self-service. Nice and easy. First thing you can do is if you are using their barcode number, let's say for like volunteers that have specific numbers that they might have badges for, or students, you are able to use that barcode number. Looks like Jack Black's already signed in, so it's asking me if I would like to sign out. So I'll go ahead and sign into something else. So I've gone through, it's asking me which area Jack Black would like to go to. I can use my classroom visit like I did earlier, and we'll choose Mr. Jones, and we're signing in. We'll get a little confirmation right down here at the bottom, and then it will also, if I have it set up correctly to then print, I would then get my little badge here. Speaking of which, to print your badges, we're going to want to make sure that you take a look at your settings, and that's going to be these 3 little lines up here at the top. We can require a birth date with a name. If you are going to be running those sex offender registry checks, I do suggest you have that turned on. We can allow new visitors so that you're able to just add someone new rather than having to do it through the admin area. Which roles are able to sign into this kiosk? I'll choose our second ones there. And then when you're setting up your printer, this is going to be really important down here at the bottom to make sure it is pointing to the correct printer. One thing to keep in mind here is if you have any questions, we have our support team available 24/7 for you. We also have some amazing guides that are just step-by-step on how to set those up. So if you do have a printer and you need to set it up, go ahead and let us know. We can go ahead and help you out with that. Up here, we also have a different type of mode in both of your kiosks, which is an express mode. This is really handy if you would like to really quickly set people into a specific activity. So as I'm setting this, I can say, this is going to be for all of my visitors, and maybe we're doing parent-teacher conference. So we're going to select that one there, and everyone's signing in. So when I have this set, I don't need to use those selections. It's automatically going to say this is for visitors, for parent-teacher conference, and they're signing in. It'll just make the process a lot quicker. You will, however, just want to make sure once those are done that you come in and turn off that express mode. There we go. Now, if you are adding someone new or someone's trying to sign in without their barcode, you can scan their driver's license or state ID. That will enter their information. However, if you don't have a scanner, or maybe you are going to be typing in their information, you can just use your keyboard as well. And we would add a name here. And their birth date. And continue. Because Johnny here is not in the system, it's going to let me know that this is not a user that has been found, so we can create new. Any optional information that I might want to add here. If not, go ahead and leave it blank and just click continue. And then at that point is where, if I had it set up to run, that sex offender registry check would run. Those pop-ups would come up if there was a possible match. However, if not, we would be here just now asking me, what activity are they signing into? And then there's that confirmation ready to go. I'm going to do one more sign in for Mr. John Doe so you can see what it would look like if someone's access has been denied. So we'll type in his information and continue. So here's my little message just letting me know at this point any internal processes for how you're going to handle that would want to go into place. We can clear this out and it would just reset my window ready for the next person to sign in. Up here under our user menu, we have some quick reports that are only going to be shown on the attended kiosk. So I can see who's currently in the building and who's here now. So it'll show me who. Anyone who's not shown right there is because that activity that they signed into was untimed, excuse me. So because I didn't have to sign in or sign out, then they're not there. If I had my printer set up, I would be able to reprint their badge, or if I wanted to print off this list, maybe there's a disaster going on, or we just need to see who's currently in the building, I'm able to use that PDF icon to then download and print my report. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and log out of our attended kiosk, and your self-service is going to work the same. However, it's not going to, oops, let's close out of that. Get all these pop-ups out of the way. However, it's not going to show those quick reports, and if there were any possible matches, it won't show that as well. So this is where people can go in and sign in by themselves. You can, under your kiosk settings, you'll see it's kind of locked down, so people can't just come in and change them. I could have this set up to only run for, let's say, my volunteers, because they've already been vetted. The sign-in process will be the same. And then if I try to sign in Mr. John Doe again, this is what they would see on their end. So just letting them know they're not able to sign in, and whatever my kiosk note that I had written right there, so they know how to proceed. Okay. Before we jump over to our volunteers, there's one more area that I would like to show everyone, and that's going to be over here in our operations. Back under our admin, your operations are going to be where you can go to view the old operations that you've run for the day. You're able to kind of just review those. However, this is also going to be where you go to run different operations. So you have your reports where you're gathering information. When you're setting these up, you'll notice that on the left, I have just some basic saved reports listed here. However, to create new reports, you're going to want to click Add Report and then choose which one you'd like. If anyone has any questions about these, go ahead and let us know. But all of these will have a little description there, so you're able to determine what you're wanting to run, as well as if you're looking for something specific, our support team is there to help you as well. Utilities are similar in the setup. However, your utilities are actually modifying information. So removing users, or our support team can help like move users to site, things along those lines. You're able to export if you'd like to have a file of, let's say, all of your users that you want to put into Excel to kind of modify or move things around. You're able to do that with your export, and then also importing to either add new users or add and update existing users. Before we jump into volunteers, I wanted to see if there were any specific questions that we want to go over as a group. Nope, we're good? Okay. Well, I guess now then we will pass on the training over here to Josh.
Figured we'd give Seneca a little bit of a break, so she didn't have to talk the whole time, guys. So now you're going to have to hear my voice. All right. So I just wanted to go over the concept of volunteer management within the program. Volunteers act differently than the rest of our person types generally do. A standard visitor could be a person that shows up once and never comes again, or somebody who you may have a different level of, desired kind of oversight or, checking, because they'll be with students for lesser time, whereas volunteers may be an overnight volunteer. You may have many different tiered levels of what kind of security you want to keep an eye on them with. So we have incorporated a few tools to help with managing those individuals in the system. One of those tools is the application. The application, if you do not see this in your program and are wanting to see it, just let us know. It may just be a product code that needs to be enabled. But other than that, first and foremost, you'd go to Tools off the left-hand side here. Under Tools, you'll see we have the option for Form Builder under the Builder section. Form Builder is where we're going to create the application itself. And here we can see I'm actually going to sign in real quick with a different site. There you go. I went ahead and threw some different information in there to kind of demonstrate what filling out this form would look like. The name itself is going to show up at the top, just something kind of, our standard application, helping identify what you are and what you're doing. The background check enablement required button, that is there if you want to ensure that the background check has to be ran on each and every application you are running. If you have some scenarios in which you are not running them or do not need to run them, I would suggest having it unchecked. Do make sure, though, that any of your individuals that are processing your applications are thoroughly trained and prepared for what they need to do to get an application processed. Next, instructions. This is going to be just kind of a very brief way of saying, hey, you need to be aware of X, Y, and Z if you're going to be a volunteer here, or it costs $10 to be a volunteer. We're going to bump you to a paid page after you fill out this application that you need to pay for, whatever that might need to be for you guys. Below that, we've got a form completion URL. That is exactly what I was mentioning just a moment ago. That was what would take them to a secondary site after the fact. So if you want a more in-depth way of explaining what your volunteering process is going to look like, this is a great way to bump them to maybe a page you've set up on your school website that explains that and gives them a step-by-step rundown of what they need to do to be a volunteer. Below that is the show hide form preferences, this gives you the ability to put in a date range in which applications would not be accepted. And in its place, a form disabled message would pop up saying, hey, by the way, it's the summer, we're not accepting applications right now, or whatever it is. If you guys have a break in the middle of the year that you're not accepting applications, or if there's a period of time once applications stop being accepted, period, this is a place to put that. That way you don't get a deluge of applications that you're not planning on taking care of, or that won't fit within the time period you need volunteer help. Next, our fields options. We have a few ways to make some of our fields required to be filled out or specified, such as whether you want background check consent. Now, this is vital if you're going to be running background checks on people. There is a thing called the FCRA inclusion for these kinds of things that is just kind of an individual's rights, whether they can have a background check run on them or not. That's all something that can be research on a deeper level for the individuals themselves, obviously, and you're welcome to put that in your instructions. Say, hey, here's a link to any rights that we expect you need to be aware of. But that's kind of up to the individuals themselves. Here they are giving you the right to at least just run that background check. Now, one thing to be aware with our background checks, as you're probably aware, if you are running them, they're not incredibly expensive. And I'm sure you've ran across background checks in your life that are, some of those, maybe a couple $100 ones that a business may run to double check certain employees that take a lot of time. They're ran by a professional team of people or people that will do all the running down of all the different odds and ends of what they're finding. With ours, a lot of the power is put into your hands, which is very important to be aware of. It's the same with the SOR, sex offender registry information. We give the power to you guys to be able to do with it as you will. So anytime you have any concerns about an individual that's going to be, volunteering, if our information that we've offered kind of gives you pause or, you're concerned about it, dig deeper, look further as needed. If it's very obvious and you can see the person's picture and you can see it, an obvious match, that's great. Just be aware that as Seneca demonstrated before with our checks, sometimes there are, aliases and other things that give kind of like difficult information or information that's in the system that is maybe difficult to parse. So be prepared. Sometimes you might need to do a little bit of background work on your own outside of what the system offers. And hopefully most of our matches will show the agency that reported it, which is the next best step to start doing your research. Below that, we've got custom fields you can turn on or off. These are requirable or disableable or just optional, but it gives you the ability to gather information that is specific to your needs that we just can't account for on a global level. Next, you can gather a username and password if you need to. So if these are going to be admins that are going to be signing into the program and operating it for some reason, this is a way to gather that and let them put in their own information. Next, you can ask if or solicit felony conviction information. So if you were wanting to find that out about an individual, that is helpful. And if you set it to required, they'll have to say yes or no. Obviously, this is a volitional, offering of their information, but it's a way that maybe you get a little bit of a flag about somebody. In custom fields, I've seen folks even put in, if you said yes to the felony conviction, please explain what the situation was or the scenario. Next, under your require for birth date, you've got that. Generally, if you're going to be running any checks, do have birthday check. That should be required. Photo ID note, that gives you the ability to them to put in a note with a photo ID. Address, obviously you're going to require an address. If you're going to be sending out mailers, anything like that, trying to contact people outside of an email or phone number, that is very handy to have, maybe necessary to require. Next, you can set whether you're going to be gathering email and phone. Email gives you the ability, and I'll show you in a quick moment, based on your volunteer application processing process, to send out email and notifications to folks, letting them know, hey, we received your application, we received your application, approved it, or we received your application, we're not able to approve it. The phone number, there are various elements of the system with staff especially where SMS or text messages can go out based on various things. So maybe it's handy for you to gather that for those reasons, so you have it on file, or so you can set them up for notification through KeepnTrack or whatever other internal system you've got. So that's pretty much the setup of the application. Fairly straightforward. Let's go ahead and look at some of the ancillary little features around that. So I'm going to go ahead and pop to Preferences off to the left side there. And for our custom questions, I'm going to pop under Advanced and then Setup. And you'll see I have a Custom Form Fills option right below that. Right now, we just have them all kind of enabled just for visual referencing. They are disabled to be viewable though. I do have my top one required. I've gone ahead and thrown in just a custom sample question. What volunteer shifts can you fulfill? You probably would want to be more specific in your own needs, such as like we have shifts 1 through 5 or whatever it is, or maybe offer a link to individuals at the end where they can see these different shifts. This is up to you guys and what your needs are and what you need to communicate. Next, I mentioned that you can send out emails to individuals as part of the volunteer application process to have that turned on so that they are being sent out. You'd want to pop under preferences and then users. And under users, you would see form notices as our bottom option there. And by turning those on, you are saying, I do want these messages to send, whether it's when I approve it or whether when I reject it. And then the messages themselves, lastly but not least, if you pop to preferences and then messaging off to the right there, is here are your form letters. Received is just by default. This just goes out regardless whenever. And you'll see I've put in some little just sample custom text of what that looks like. Now this you do of course have to gather the email for it to go out. Otherwise this received will show at the end of the application process, which we'll see here in a quick sec. Approved, that would go out and this is saying, hey, you got approved. You need to show up at this place, this time, this date, so that we can get you finalized or whatever. So we can issue you a badge, so we can take your picture, whatever that might need be. And then rejected, obviously you don't need to say, hey, you were rejected, just something like, hey, by the way, we had some difficulties processing your application. Please show up at this time, this building, so that we can help with that and figure that out. Is usually what I've seen folks do. Okay, so doing good, no questions so far? All right, so what I will do is I will now go ahead and pop us to the application itself. I'll show you what that looks like. Seneca showed you earlier to kiosks. You've got a quick link to form apply that takes you to the application. I might need to click it again because I was under a different site. We'll just do a quick refresh here, guys. It's being silly with me. It's because I switched sites. Sorry, let me grab my URL here, copy that. And there we go. Okay, perfect. Now, do be aware if you are testing your application, the program is recognizing that you are assigned as an admin and it's showing you your information within the application environment. So just be aware that you would, if you want to have a new person apply, just log out. Now, this wouldn't be a problem for anybody else who's bringing it up in any other interface because they wouldn't be logged into the program. You as an admin using a KeepnTrack would be. All right, so first and foremost, we'll just put in my sample person. Man. I know it's Tuesday, but boy, does it feel like Friday to my fingers. Cannot type. All right. Then if you guys have a particular barcode within your guys' institutions that you're using for person identification, such as, I know there are student ID numbers or badges, there are probably staff badges, that kind of thing. If you guys have scannable ID badges that people can use for signing in and out quickly, you can offer them to volunteers even, to make their sign in and out process really quick if they're regulars. You can actually assign them these unique numbers that can be scanned right into the kiosk upon sign in. Next, put in our email, a birth date, hit continue there. It does require a proper phone format, and then whether I do consent to a background check. Now, next page is our customized questions. I just put in the one, but if you have more, they would all show up here. Mine is required. Fill that out, and pretty straightforward, guys. Now, this is printable, so if you guys want to instruct people that for some reason they want to have this printed for themselves, they are welcome to. I'm going to go and submit. You'll see there's our little volunteer submittal notice that'll pop up, and let them know. This will also email out if you need. And then, as I mentioned, you can have it bounce to a third-party site. I'm having going to one of our local school groups, just as a quick example. And now we're ready to process the application. So to do so, I will pop to Tools here and then Form Processing. Now, one little note that is important to be aware of, if you want to give only certain access to certain individuals I do need to refresh this because I signed out. One sec here. There we go. If you are giving access to certain individuals only volunteer processing, you can actually do that under your security here. So say you've got one individual who only processes people's applications. You can actually set them up with their own login to just do that. That way they don't have access to anything else. And that's pretty much the same with anything else in the program. So if you're wanting to lock down any element, such as like they can only process people in the kiosks, Seneca already went over this, but yeah, just be aware that that is an important thing. Okay, so tools and form processing. Here I've got a few other sample applications, but my sample person is right here down below. Here's all the info that we just entered. We can evaluate some of their additional information under custom fields here. This is physically printable as well, guys. So if you do need some kind of quick reference to a long list of questions that you are going to be like asking them about or entering in later, or you can even copy and paste directly out of this into a third-party system. We do have an export feature built into the program now. And so a number of fields that might be related to person management can be exported out of the program and into a third-party program as well. So those are options. Lastly, checks. I did not set it as required, so if you'll notice, I can go up to the top right, and I can specify that I want to approve this person immediately as a volunteer or student or whatever it might be without running the background check. So just to demonstrate, this is an opportunity for you to gather people data without actually having to be like a volunteer. It can be a form that is filled out for any type of person, no matter who that might be. So if you have some unique scenario in which these individuals don't fit into kind of a volunteer situation, but you need them in there for, you know, referencing, reporting, anything like that, you can use this application for that purpose as well. Seneca demonstrated in our checks before, but say this is an individual such as a staff member, I'm not going to be checking them. I can always set to always allow or always deny. So if they are somebody who is in like a blacklist or a denied list, I can set that to always deny as well. And that makes sure that I'm not going to be burning any tokens on them unnecessarily. So pretty straightforward, nothing too radical here. If you do make any changes, you do need to save it up at the top right. But once I'm done, I can just hit approve. And this will kind of like need to be refreshed. But that person should get pushed to now users. You'll see they're out of this list. And if I pop to users and look at my most recently created folk, my person is right there. There we go. My sample person, all ready to be volunteering. So, and you'll notice if I did specify volunteer when I approve them, it will check that volunteer role, and it will recognize the facility that you specified as well. Now, be aware if you are having your volunteers volunteer at all facilities, you can pop here to roles, and we have a little bit of an adjustment to the program with our most recent update. You can specify that they are good to volunteer at all sites at this point here. So that way they can still fulfill a volunteer role, but at multiple sites if need be. That was a request that we needed for a few folks, and we've brought it back. And I think, Brandon, you might have been one of those. So, but anywho, guys, that's pretty much what we needed for volunteer management. If there are any questions, please submit them to Seneca there, and I'm happy to answer them right now. God,
so far nothing.
We've just been so good. We've gotten it all covered, huh? Well, I'm sure a lot of this was potentially kind of already known information for a number of you, stuff that maybe you've already learned if you're an existing user to the program. That's great if that's the case. Hopefully this was beneficial to you on a few levels. Be aware, Seneca, we can have throw it into our little chat there, but we do suggest you sign up for any of our notices that go out about the program. That's updates to it. That's updates as well as what am I thinking of?
The blog.
The blog, new
their emails,
tips of the week, that kind of thing that we might send out. So yeah, please, we try to keep you guys as informed as possible, but the support team is there anytime you need, no matter what it is, no matter how big or small. Do not hesitate to reach out. We would rather you reach out for an answer to your question, get it answered quickly, as opposed to spinning your wheels and getting frustrated. I'm all for being self-sufficient, but you guys, I'm sure your time is limited, so we want to get you to help that as fast as possible and generally. But yeah, if we're not having any questions pop up, we're at our hour, and so I guess we will just let you fine folk go. Take again a look at the chat. We'll leave that open for a little bit after the end of the meeting here. But other than that, reach out if you have any other questions directly to our support team. Thank you all so much for your time. Have a lovely rest of your Tuesday, and take care. All right, guys, there have been no questions. We're going to go ahead and end this session here. Thank you so much again. Have a lovely rest of your day.